What is the Matrix? Control. Built to keep us under control and to transform us into fuel for the machine. MaxAnte offers you these transmissions as messages for those of you that sense that things are not as they appear. In a worldwide culture under systematic, mechanized, hypnotic obedience, which right now is seeking to take even more control of you and everyone else. We respond by uncovering hidden truths, hacking through the systems, implementing new ways of freedom, and tuning more into joy. If this resonates, you'll feel it inside and know that these messages are for you. If anything doesn't resonate at this time, don't try to make it fit, just let it go. And keep in mind, everything here is paradoxical, not to be taken as literal advice, nor to be taken too seriously, because after all, this is your tour on Earth. Each year, each of us has our own natural rhythms, and there are some amazing tools that will enable us to tune into and understand on a bigger picture how we actually flow each year. And we can make use of this kind of system when we're tuning in to the listening, because the listening is looking for feedback, all different types of feedback, to enable us to flow much more easily without any blockages, with more fun, with more success in our lives. So what am I talking about here? Well, this one, there's obviously probably many ways of understanding your natural rhythms throughout the year, but I'm going to talk about something that's, maybe a bit left of field and not everybody would agree with, but it's a fascinating area to explore in understanding how your own rhythms enable you to tune into successes, when to take rest, when to take action. And I'm talking about on a bigger scale across the whole year. What am I talking about? I'm talking about astrology. And there's many different types of astrology. I've already mentioned it a few times that I've explored many different types of astrological systems and how they can map out someone's basically their entire life, from the macro, their whole life, down to the months and the days and the years, obviously. So now what I've found, I've studied many different types of astrology, from the Western astrology, which has the 12 zodiac signs. Then there's also the Hindu astrology that is quite similar, but offers a different slant on that same system. I found that one to be remarkably accurate. And I've talked about the Mayan astrology and how that one is totally different, based upon like a 9-month calendar. But it's remarkable in what it can reveal. But the one I studied the most was the Chinese calendar and the Chinese type of astrology called the 4 pillars. And inside this model, it revealed, but it's based upon 5 elements, which is wood, metal, fire, earth, and water. So those are the 5 elements that are different from the 4 elements that we have in Western society, in the Western methodologies, which are air, water, fire, and earth. The Chinese, they've added metal and wood and taken out air, which is interesting. And then they also have the 12 animals, and so they combine the 12 animals with these 5 elements. But that's not what's really interesting. What's really interesting is when you get a personalized astrological reading done using the 4 pillars. Why is it called 4 pillars? Because they take your hour of birth, your day of birth, your month of birth, and your year of birth, those 4, and obviously the location. So that's pretty standard in astrology. But what was fascinating with this model was that it maps out an entire calendar for somebody, because the Chinese are very specific on calendars, and basically it's a very earthy, grounded type of astrology that reveals how you're interacting in the world, when are the best times for you to take action, when are the best times to step back. And so you can basically almost plan out an entire year. And on top of this, they even have these 10-year luck cycles. So you can actually see on a bigger time frame, wow, what's this 10-year period going to be like? And you have it's sort of mapped out over 10 or a dozen 10-year periods of your whole life. And quite freakishly, this type of astrology can reveal the most successful times in your whole life and the least successful, and even things like when you would probably more likely die and get sick. It's that detailed. So the Chinese people were often quite concerned and freaked out about speaking to Chinese astrologers, even though they would be prone to do that. And not all of the astrologers would even tell them exactly what they saw, because these charts would reveal a map of someone's whole life. And so, and sometimes it would be quite sad, because someone's had their most successful times, let's say when they were very young. And then as they grew older, sometimes all the luck changed, because it's about mapping luck. And so that's how they referred to it, the cosmic sort of luck that was a blueprint from the celestial heavens. It's it's basically like a Taoist sort of methodology where you as the human is a combination of meeting between the heavenly realms, the stars, and the earthly realm. You could call it Gaia. And so this astrological system is fascinating. And I was able to do readings for people. I spent quite some time actually as a feng shui Chinese astrological consultant, and I would consult for businesses, and I did that for a number of years and built up a whole business. I've done so many different types of businesses, but I found that type of astrology so remarkably accurate that it even freaked me out. And so what I was able to see, I would meet somebody, not know anything about them. They would give me their 4 pillars, like their hour, day, month, and year of birth. And then I would just sit down with them without knowing anything and just pinpoint and tell them, oh, this is when you made all of your money. Oh, this is when you lost all of your money. Oh, this is when you probably had a happy marriage for this particular decade. Oh, I can see over here you got divorced. And their mouths just hung open. They were just like shocked. How on earth could you know all of this? And I said, well, because it's here in this chart here. And so the Chinese astrology was brilliantly accurate at revealing fortune telling, essentially, really, what was going to be happening to somebody. And we've talked a bit about this in other episodes, where what is really going on here is this whole system that we're living in pre-mapped out. Is there really any free will? Is there any real freedom here in a system? Because if it can be so accurately modeled for someone's life moving forward, what is going on? This is a very strange world that we're living in. I've even told you how there's like apparently a mysterious book in India that I've met somebody whose mother went and found it. And if you find this book and you read it, you're actually in it, and it reveals every single thing about your whole life, when you're born, when you die, like a page for you. I mean, obviously, I find that hard to believe, but some people, well, I met somebody who told me, and I think I've even heard about it from other references as well. So this is a very strange thing, that the world has these systems for mapping out your life. But the Chinese astrological system of the 4 pillars is fascinating. Why am I bringing all of this up? Because we're talking about the listening, and part of our hypnotic trance that we're under in our society is that we have to keep on pushing all the time, and we have to keep on working and being at everything, basically pretty much the same, like a robot. That's why they've tried to turn everybody into these zombie bots, just doing what they're told month after month, year after year, without really any change in their rhythms. And so, people have these rhythms, and like especially if you're a woman, you know that every month you have a rhythm that your body's clearly telling you about. But does that fit into the mechanized social order? No, it does not. You have to keep turning up to work. You have to keep working non-stop, pretty much, no matter what you're going through. Like there are some countries that are being a bit more lenient, but not really very many on this sort of thing. And so people are increasingly being turned more and more into robots. And that's actually the bigger plan that's at work here, is to further mechanize and turn people more into machines, so that the whole system works more and more efficiently. That's the name of the game here. An efficient system that keeps everybody under control. But if you start to tune into the listening and start to feel into the natural rhythms, you'll feel like, wow, like there are times when it's good for me to rest, and times for me to dive in and get fully active. And when you have these extra tools, like these astrological readings, well, it can reveal actually when is a good time to just completely take off and do something radically different, like basically not work at all, and when are other times to really get engaged. So I'm reflecting upon all this because I'm thinking about my own life. And so my nature, according to the Chinese astrological system of the 4 pillars, is all about water. So as I mentioned, the 5 elements, and mine is all about water, which is all about communication and teaching and also learning and technology, which is basically what I'm very good at, those things, and that's what I spent my life doing. And I love those areas. But interestingly, my combination points to there's basically a number of months in the year that things don't flow as easily for me. And I've actually been working with this model, this type of system, for about 20 years, more than 20 years actually. And so I've been tracking myself this whole time, and it's been proven completely accurate. So for me, the first 6 months, actually kind of the first 7 months of each year, are kind of more problematic in my work life. Like, and I love working, so I just basically can't really stop. I'm always engaged in projects, creating things, new projects. But I find the first half of the year is like really pushing things uphill. And then it just turns around, and there's this massive amount of success and opportunity and things that it's like the floodgates open in the last half of the year, and it ramps up. So the last half of the year starts kind of slowly and just builds to this crescendo by the end of December. And that's because the last part of the year are the metal months and the water months. And those are my two types of months, the two types of elements that really resonate and respond with me and give me all of my support and success according to the Chinese astrological system. And so now, according to this model, and I have not actually been implementing this, but this is something obviously I've thought about quite a bit, is what would it be like if I just took the first half of the year off every year? Now, I could probably do this. I certainly find it very difficult doing nothing, which is probably something else we could talk about, because we're under this hypnotic trance that we have to keep on working all the time, keep on doing stuff, because we feel that our self-worth, perhaps maybe that's where it comes from, is derived from activity. And so it's like a further cultural hypnosis to always be pushing. Now, according to this other model over here, it could well be, I could still be doing activities, like probably writing my books, being creative, speaking at conferences, all of that sort of thing. That's probably the better sort of activity for me to be doing in the first half of the year. And, or maybe quietly building things and not actually actively involved in bringing new projects to the market or creating launches and that sort of thing. That would be better left to the last half of the year in my particular case. Now, everybody is different. Now, obviously, that would be the same. There would be some people, because it's a system, there would be some who would be the same as me. But there's different models for everybody. But I just wanted to raise this because of the idea of flowing with our nature in the world. And the more we can tune into this and the more we can see patterns, because the listening is all about pattern recognition. That's what you want to be looking for and training yourself in, is a continual analysis of what's happening and find the repetitive patterns in your life. Because life is a pattern, and these patterns is like a tapestry that's being played before you and that you're interacting with. And there are ways to do this which really work for you and enable you just to slide and go gracefully forward with a lot of ease and grace, and other ways where it's like a lot of work, a lot of uphill battling and pushing. And I'm saying that, no, I don't think we have to do that. If we're flowing with nature and we've really tuned into what our own unique nature is, and we have these amazing tools and technologies that will help us see what that is, such as these types of astrology, then we can more easily tune in and flow and have a much more joyous, happy time here. And so why not take advantage of this? Some of you, rightly so, are going to be wondering, how on earth can all this astrology, psychic stuff work? Particularly, we've just been talking about different astrological systems, and you're wondering, well, this doesn't make much sense. We've already talked about rationality and logic and scientism. And so most likely, if you're thinking like this, that's because you're very much under the sway of the current scientific worldview. And so you've got a lot of faith in that. And because the scientists have given you a lot of evidence from their instruments, and basically you're going along with that, because in that worldview, you've already decided what the stars are, what the world is, where all this came from, like the Big Bang Theory, all that sort of stuff, what life is. But maybe you've even got a different perspective. Maybe you're coming from a very deeply religious perspective, where you are committed to a certain type of doctrine that tells you that astrology and all this stuff is not accurate either, or maybe that it's actually even bad. So they're kind of similar, these two perspectives that are just saying that this can't be because of this worldview that I'm attached to. So what I'm encouraging you to do is examine your attachments, examine your views, and wonder, why have you got such an allegiance to this perspective? And along with that, what if you were just to test it out? So that's what I was describing in this particular episode here. And there are very different types of astrological systems, like the Western astrology, that's more sort of mental and psychological. So And quite a few of the different astrological systems, the Hindu astrology, even the Mayan astrology, they're kind of more in that vein. But what was very interesting with the Chinese astrology was that it's actually about mapping out someone's life here on Earth and the ups and downs, their successes and their failures. And they're all linked to time. So the Chinese model is very much grounded in reality, here on Earth, what's happening to you. There is a psychological component as well, like what you're going to be best at doing, the kind of things you're going to like. And if all of that was accurate, especially the reading of the timescales and what was going to be happening to you, as I've described, as what I was able to see through the rhythms of life, the ups and downs being mapped out onto the years of their life. Well, if you're able to test that out and check it, as I've done, and if it's accurate, as I've seen it is, then you'd have to ask yourself, why? How is this possible? And that is pointing more to the mystery, the great mystery that's going on here, where all of your presumptions, potentially, your potential presumptions, I'm just saying, about what is life and what is the world and what are the stars and what is the moon and what is the earth, maybe that's not accurate. So you've potentially been spun a whole lot of evidence that may not actually be true. There's a lot invested in the current social system to have you believe what everybody else is believing. And in the current social system, they don't want you to believe that such astrological maps of someone's life could be real, because the scientists can't grab a little gadget and point to it and say, oh, this is accurate. And because most people now have fallen under the sway of scientism and they're believing everything that they're saying, then that's why they can't accept these other things. So, but what I'm wanting you to do is to actually become a real scientist. And a real scientist is somebody who examines evidence and they go and check things out for themselves, rather than just relying upon other people who could have a bias and an agenda here. So that's what this is really about, is testing these things out for yourself, becoming a scientist, like a real scientist with the real scientific model, not propped up by any bias or agenda, where there's like a criteria coming from various organizations. Let all that go. Let your biases go and start to examine all of this, because the stories, the legends go is that in ancient China, where all this material came from, like about the I Ching, Feng Shui, Taoism, these types of astrological systems that all the emperors and all the leaders relied upon, well, apparently they came as gifts from heaven. And so from the heavens, from the stars. And so that makes that very curious and interesting. What was it that came here? And how did all of that work? And maybe it didn't even happen in the way that you're imagining. Straight away when we talk like that, you probably go to some Hollywood vision of like some spaceships coming down and teaching them stuff, as though there are other planets and all of that. Well, I think it's far more peculiar than all of that. And so don't even lean into just going along with your entertainment media Hollywood bias. So, this projection upon how this whole universe works and where all this could be coming from, maybe that's not even true. So really just keep a very open mind and follow your own exploration and gathering your own evidence, because that's going to actually reveal more of the truth. And I just have, in this episode, have talked about following the rhythms of your life and allowing that to be another area of the listening. And your questioning of, like, it's valid, it's good to be questioning, how could this be? If this actually is working like I'm seeing, how could all this happen? Well, that's a great question to ask. Really great question. And that could be a life journey, a quest to find out more, which is what we're going to be looking at here, because that's what I'm on. I'm on a quest to find out more. Like, wow, how does all of this work? What is really going on here? My presumptions about what the world is, what life is, what humans are, I think that they're just been trained. I've been trained by a culture that doesn't want me to know the truth. And you don't even need an astrological system to tell you this. You could actually just map it out for yourself. You could just take the 12 months of each year and make some notes and go, well, hang on, what's been happening the past decade or so each year? And you can actually plot it out, and you may start to see some patterns there. And if you notice that there are regular times which are more difficult than others, it's not necessarily that the world is actually difficult. It's the world is telling you a different message on how to interact with the world. So the world is revealing through the feedback, hey, this is probably a time for you to do something different. Maybe actually completely have a break, have a holiday, go by the beach, Go and meditate for a month or two. Just take some time out, or go to a cabin in the woods and just be creative, or any number of things, or just hang out with your family and just play and chill for different times. Now, obviously, because of economics and the mechanized system that we're living under, everything is designed to try to have obstacles to not enable you to do that. That'll be for further discussions in other episodes, because that's a real key. You need your own economic freedom to allow yourself to have the space in your life to play life how you would want to. So, but this is something that you can tune into anyway, and you can take advantage of these systems to find out, well, what are my natural rhythms, or you could just plot them out and see if you're noticing any patterns. So start to look for patterns and give yourself permission to play this game of life, not according to the beat of the mechanized system's drum, which tells you to constantly work non-stop, month in, month out, year in, year out. Find your own rhythm, and don't worry what other people think. If you see that, oh wow, basically every January and February, I'm way better off just chilling and relaxing, and that's not going to be the best time for me to work. Or maybe it's actually May and June of the year, different times for different people. And so give yourself permission. That's what this is all about, giving yourself permission, because nobody else is going to give it to you, to live your rhythms and tune into your listening. Start exploring and discovering things for yourself so that you can have the most joyous experience here. It's not up to anybody else. It's nobody else's business what works for you. It's here for you to discern and for you to live, because the world wants to see you live your most joyous expression here and to share that with the world.